And welcome back. We're going to go over today's move. We're going to go over the trade I took. I went long today and we secured some profits, which is nice. 838 pips or 83 points if you're looking at the chart. So it's like 25489 or 87 to 2547. No, two. Ignore that completely, mate. Absolutely shambles. Yeah, so 25489 to 25572. So it's about 83 pips. My broker statement says 838. There you go. That's one partial there for £62, and the other one for 68.69. And that was after trailing my stop. There you go. Lovely. So did something a bit different today. I did implement the use of AI to help me with my analysis, my decision making, and to ultimately find me or help me execute a better entry, more in line with my model. And yeah, it played out. So it was a bit of an experiment, and I had to provide quite a bit of backup, like screenshots and different time frames and stuff. But yeah, I had my initial trade idea, which was this one here. I'll zoom out in a sec. And yeah, I basically ended up cancelling this buy limit and then waiting for the New York session. And then we traded through that instead. So let's get into it. To start, where were we? So we had FOMC yesterday, which caused this nice pump upwards. Just zoom out a little bit, quite zoomed in here. So we're going to 4 hour. And yeah, so FOMC yesterday evening created this move up, and we swept these two highs here. On the NASDAQ, we still have this 4 hour higher time frame point of interest as an overall target. I do think we're going to start heading upwards towards this now. Especially after, today we've had what? 1, 2, 3, 4 lows swept. One sweep there, and then almost swept again, but price didn't quite want to go past it today. And yeah, so what I'll do is I'll go over my initial trade idea, and that was, if we just hide this. So in the Asia session, we manipulated down below previous daily low, and in doing so, we took these relative equal lows here. So in hindsight, that is a good sign that price doesn't need to go lower than that. You look at all of this down here, there's only like this sort of imbalance, and the rest is all just sort of chilling. And then from there, in the London session, we had the inverse fair value gap here, breaker structure, 15-minute fair value gap here, and then price has gone up to take the Asia high into this fair value gap here. And I was looking at potential targets along here and also the previous daily high, a bit more clear on the hourly chart. But before we go any further there, we'll just have a look at S&P, which was quite similar as well. This is on the hourly chart. Same sort of thing going on. Manipulate down in the Asian session, and then inverse fair value gap just above the previous daily low. In the London session, price moves up, breaks structure, move up again for next leg, retrace at 8:30. We have the sweep on the way down, and then we've continued upwards for the next expansion towards previous daily high. So I'll just give you the drawings for this. This was my initial idea. We got break structure there, inverse. So that's the model right there. And that would have been lovely on the S&P. And to be honest, I was looking at this in the same sort of time, like London session sort of time. And on both charts, I was kind of analyzing, on a 5-minute, more so on the NASDAQ. So on the S&P, it was a bit clearer. On the 15-minute, it was on the 30-minute even. We had this fair value gap, and I was like, right, I want to see price trade back down into this and then push up. And I was initially anticipating this to happen before or just at the start of the New York session, which, as you can see, in hindsight now, 9:30 to 9:45 candle, we did manipulate down into this fair value, or not manipulate, we retraced back down into this fair value gap and then have moved up since then. So that would have been a nice 2.61 to 1. But I preferred the setup on the NASDAQ purely because the inverse fair value gap was more aligned with the actual model template that I have. It's the inverse fair value gap is sitting above the previous daily low here, whereas on the NASDAQ it's sitting below. So going into my initial analysis earlier on in the day, we had this, and bear in mind I'm looking at this higher time frame point of interest. We did have unemployment, red folder news at the 9:30 open today, as usual on Thursdays. So this was another consideration that I took. And yeah, I noticed that we had these relative equal lows in the London session that had been generated, and neither chart had really swept them. They were pretty much equal. So this was one of the things I was looking at. I was like, this looks very much like someone's going to get swept out here if they go long. And that's where I employed the use of AI to give me a bit more context. I provided the news, I provided multiple time frames, and ultimately that's what helped me make the decision from taking this trade to going for this one instead. But nevertheless, in terms of risk, I was going for, was it 3? Yeah, so this would have been the original move here with the buy limit here, and TP just above this volume imbalance, and on the hourly chart that is, no, it was a 30-minute chart. It was basically this high that I was going for. I didn't quite feel that we would make this move all the way up, and simply because we had FOMC yesterday, and it can be a bit tricky to determine the following day, especially since we got this big move up and then this manipulation down, or this reversal, sorry. And I was also taking into consideration, the fact that we had inverse fair value gap here, one here. So I wasn't really sure at this point. Well, I had an idea. That was the main thing. I had the idea of the trade, and it was forming my model. So you can see we got multiple fair value gaps forming here. We had where my cursor is now. If you look across here, we had this one. On the 15-minute, we had a 30-minute inverse here, and on the 5-minute, we had one here. Well, not quite actually, because the wick doesn't allow that to be a fair value gap. But that could have been a good entry there. But I just wanted to wait a little bit longer, especially considering yesterday's trade where I got in around the same sort of time towards the end of the London session. And as we know, I trimmed my stop and we got swept out. So as mentioned in yesterday's video, I wanted to improve on that and ensure that my entry was more calculated, more efficient. So from there, I was basically just discussing with Copilot, what's the probabilities of this happening, and it basically came about that after FOMC, once we have this sort of expansion in the London session with these relative equal lows here, the New York session tends to sweep them and then drive upwards in the same direction that we had initially intended. Because of this, that made me reconsider as well. And yeah, so we adjusted there. Basically got to a point where I ended up cancelling this buy limit, and whilst price was running, and it continued to run up here, and I was looking at this fair value gap that formed at 6:45 New York, and we retraced at 8:30. So typically, I would then be thinking, right, this could be another entry here. And, as I said, I was discussing with Copilot, sending it screenshots as the day was going through, just, trying to get my thoughts out for some extra consideration. Um, and yeah, we kept this in mind. So I decided, right, I'm just gonna wait. And then as price was breaking down, coming into New York session, um, yeah, we obviously had the news driver here, and that came down and swept these relative equal lows. So it was quite nice to see. It gave me a bit more conviction in the information I had provided to Copilot and my bias for the day. And then from there, I was also looking at this low to possibly get swept. At this point, uh, I wasn't looking as much at the S&P because I was focused on this move here. But by this time, where's 6:45? 6:45 comes up. That would have hit take profit by 7:30 New York time. So that could have been a nice move there. But nonetheless, once we saw this 5 minute reaction, the break, my entry was off this inverse fair value gap. We dragged it across, and yeah, I wanted to see this hold here. So I took a bit of a gamble, not well, a bit of a gamble. I'd made the plunge to take my entry at that point, and then just adapt or manage my risk accordingly. Because at this point I was quite convinced with the amount of time I've been looking at the charts and analyzing it for the day that this was the move up. And yeah, so pretty much straight away, it ran about £60 profit straight up, and it was moving quite nicely. I was then further discussing with Copilot just to be like, right, so what sort of targets would I be looking at? Because my initial target was like up here. Where was it? It was basically like a four or five risk to reward, like near this sort of zone, just underneath the previous daily high. And yeah, it was interesting just to test it out, really. My stop was just below this this inverse here, and yeah, once I'd figured out, my exit points, take profit one, take partial here, we can then take another partial here. It looks a bit clearer on the 15 minutes. So it is like the tops of these candles, and then obviously this structure up here above the Asia session, which I think by looks of it, price could be on its way up there now, going into the PM session for full delivery on the day. But yeah, at this point, I'd been looking at the charts for quite a while. I had some work to get done, so I did just want to make sure that we secured some profits and it was well managed. And yeah, so going from there, first take profit was at the top of this wick here, at the top of this candle, and then my next zone was here, and it was basically about roughly £60 per take profit at this point. So the actual trade was looking more like it was looking more like this: 130 stop, 138 even, for 400 take profit. And yeah, pretty much after I had taken profit here and I saw this candle coming down, I was then looking at, right, if this reverses now, what's the best move? So I ended up trailing my stop below this swing low. Was it this one on the 5 minute or the 15? Yeah, so I ended up trailing my stop loss below this swing, this swing here, to protect against any reversals. And we did get taken out here, and this moved my stop to 68.89. no, £68, 69 pence. And that was me out. I covered my runner. Um, and yeah, overall, it was very nice to see this and very nice to actually have a process in place and a plan to trade. Um, so that was me out by 10:35 New York time, and then I did think, oh, maybe price will continue up from here. This could just be a retracement on this candle, and then we continue the next leg. Um, but yeah, the decision to move and trail the stop was correct. As price then comes back down, fills this imbalance, and it would have tapped me out by like one point or so. Let's actually check what that was. So 427. Yeah, it would have tapped me out by 1 point, and I would have ended with a £30 loss after securing my first take profit. And then from here, got another push up. And then I sort of, at this point, I was just sort of flicking back and forth between my work and the charts just to see how price was moving from here. And yeah, I mean, overall, the takeaway here was I didn't have an exact point discussed with Copilot on where to put the stop. I just sort of felt like this is a safe place below the inverse to do so. And I was off by 1 point, basically. So I can't complain with that, but just something to note going forward. And yeah, as you can see, as we've come into the lunch hour, price has run a bit more. I just got the notification on my phone for Take Profit 2. That would have been hit at 12:40, and we've just retraced back here. And we'll just have to see tomorrow what happened during the PM session once we have another look at the charts. But I think this is going to be me done for the week, unless the model plays out again tomorrow, which 3 trades this week. I don't really need to take another one. I'm happy with what we have, especially after yesterday's basically break-even trade. So that puts us up 133 on the week. You can see there, 133.19 realized P&L. So yeah, that is a good week for me, and I'm happy with that. I will go into some of the discussion that I was having with Copilot. I've just put in like a quick summary. So my initial buy limit was placed before the New York Open, and I was anticipating the bounce from the fair value gap as discussed on here to then continue upwards. With this relative equal low target, it was basically a draw on liquidity, and that enticed me to cancel this and just wait for further confirmation and trade more in line with my model, as there wasn't a sweep and no market structure shift confirmation. So we waited for the sweep on the lows. We watched for a bullish market structure shift and a reclaimed inverse fair value gap zone. So that was the entry that I talked about. And the second entry was more aligned with my model, and I was able to enter on a discount and with a clean invalidation. So yeah, like I say, it was very interesting using this. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff. I was looking at like types of zones, and granted, I had to give quite a bit of information just to confirm any questions and inquiries, because sometimes it can't be completely accurate. But yeah, this is my first time actually managing a trade like this, and it's really helpful to have that extra insight and that extra input when considering these sorts of things, especially considering we've already taken 2 trades this week. One of them was stopped early, one of them was a partial profit, or one that I closed early before it reversed on me on Monday. So yeah, this one felt like a good trade. It felt like there was more structure to it. I felt more comfortable in letting it play out because I knew what the plan was, rather than just being like, oh, I think this is going to do this because, we've got an inverse fair value gap, break structure, fair value gap, retrace, enter for previous daily high. There was more substance and more information taken into consideration. Um, so I think going forward, I will implement use of AI a bit more just to provide me with the extra context because it's a tool and it's there. You know what I mean? Um, so I think that's pretty much about it for today. Ultimately, I do still believe that we will head up to this. As you can see, we got equal highs. They were swept, but this just looks too strong for price not to come back up here. And also, granted, with the higher time frame bullish buy, like the Nasdaq's just bullish. Um, it just makes sense that we would come up here and tap this at some point. Whether that's next week, I feel like it would be next week, depending on the movement tomorrow. I don't really anticipate too well. You never know. We'll have to see. Got no red folder tomorrow either, so yeah, it's one of those very, very interesting and lots of learning points today that I wasn't really expecting to come away with. So I'm quite pleased with this. Um, and yeah, I think that that'll probably be me for the week, like I say. And yeah, happy days. So I'm going to put this in the title as 83 pips, even though the broker statement says 838, just because it was 83 points. It's only saying 838 because of the decimal place. If it was on the S&P, it would be 83, or you know what I mean. Not like literally, but because of the decimal points, or the digits, the difference is 25,000. It's 6.8k. So yeah, 83 pips today, and it was on the day. How much did we make? Yeah, 83 pips and £131, 12 pence profit. So we'll take that away and yeah, be back with, well, I mean, I suppose this is kind of my weekly review as well. 133 for the week, and we'll take it. So with that being said, trade smart, trade safe, and I'll catch you in a bit.